And let's go back to Indonesia for more on the Prime Minister's visit. We're joined now from Jakarta by Indonesia correspondent Anne Barker. And Anne, just take us through what Scott Morrison has been discussing there today with Joko Widodo.
Miriam, that's right. He arrived last night, and today is more or less the inauguration later today for Joko Widodo as the president for a second term. But today is as much about bilateral talks between the Australian Prime Minister and leaders of many other countries who are also here today. He had about 15 to 20 minutes in private talks with President Jokowi this morning. The main item on their agenda was the trade agreement that was signed between Australia and Indonesia back in March, but is yet to be ratified by both countries. So Scott Morrison said that the House of Representatives is likely to pass that bill as early as tomorrow or this week, and it will take some weeks to then go through the upper house. But there's no timing yet on when the Indonesian Parliament will ratify it. Of course, the new parliament that was elected back in April is only just installed, and the inauguration today of Jokowi himself means that that parliament will finally be able to deal with legislation and other matters. So you would hope that that will be finalised in the next few weeks, if not sooner. They also discussed the possibility of President Jokowi coming to Australia next year, possibly to address the Australian Parliament, but there's no date on that yet. And of course, Scott Morrison held talks with the Chinese Deputy Premier Wang Qishan. He spoke to him, in fact, for far longer than he spoke to President Jokowi. They discussed general issues in the Australian relationship. The question was put as to whether an invitation has been issued for Prime Minister Scott Morrison to go to Beijing, but as he pointed out, it is not the Deputy Premier's responsibility to issue those invitations. That's something, of course, that a lot of Australian media have been speculating about in recent months. Scott Morrison also held brief talks with the Sultan of Brunei and discussed issues relating to Australia's relationship with ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. So it's very much a moment where the Prime Minister can reconnect with some of the regional leaders here, as much as it is about praising or congratulating President Joko Widodo for his election for a second term and attending his inauguration.
So a flurry of talks there, and that inauguration which is happening tonight. Just take us through what's involved with the inauguration.
Well, it's a pretty major event. It will involve the lower house of the Indonesian Parliament, which is about 530 MPs. And a lot of those have already been sworn in going back a few weeks. As I said, they were elected last April at the five-yearly election here in Indonesia. President Jokowi will be inaugurated. His new Vice President, Maruf Amin, who is new to the job, he will also be inaugurated, and the Parliament will take effect as of today. Now, he's expected to announce a cabinet as early as today or tomorrow, and there are expected to be some changes to the Indonesian cabinet, so there will be some interest there as to how or whether some of those new faces will have any bearing on relations with Australia, the Trade Minister, for example, or the Foreign Minister.
Our reporter in Indonesia, Anne Barker, bringing us up to date there.